Al, how could you do this to me? This is outrageous!
It's not what you think. Please, let's talk about this calmly.
For 5 years, Michael Reynolds had been living a double life. To the outside world, he was the devoted husband of Claire, his college sweetheart. They had married young, built a life together, and welcomed their daughter Emma into the world just 1 year ago. Their home in the suburbs was picture perfect, with its manicured lawn and white picket fence. Claire was a dedicated mother, putting her career on hold to raise their daughter, trusting Michael completely as he climbed the corporate ladder. But behind Claire's back, Michael had been seeing Vanessa, a stunning woman he'd met at a business conference 2 years ago. Vanessa was everything Claire wasn't, glamorous, carefree, and demanding of his attention. She knew he was married, but she didn't care. She wanted him, and Michael, flattered by her pursuit, couldn't resist. The affair had been easy to hide at first. Business trips, late nights at the office, weekend conferences. Claire never questioned him. She trusted him implicitly, and that trust made his betrayal all the easier. Michael told himself he would end it eventually, that he would choose his family. But every time he tried to break things off with Vanessa, she would pull him back in with promises and passion that he couldn't find at home anymore. The birthday party. Emma's first birthday party was Claire's idea. She had spent weeks planning every detail, determined to make it perfect for their daughter. The venue was a historic mansion with soaring ceilings and crystal chandeliers. She had invited family, friends, and Michael's colleagues. She wanted everyone to see their happy family, to celebrate this milestone together. Michael had promised to be there early to help set up, but he was late. He had been with Vanessa that morning, stealing a few hours before the party. When he finally arrived at the mansion, his shirt slightly wrinkled and his cologne too strong, Claire noticed but said nothing. She was too busy entertaining guests and caring for Emma, who looked adorable in her white lace dress. What Michael didn't know was that Vanessa had decided to crash the party. She was tired of being his secret, tired of waiting for him to leave his wife. She wanted to force his hand, to make him choose once and for all. She had bought a stunning red dress for the occasion, one that would make every head turn. When Vanessa walked into the ballroom, Michael's blood ran cold. He was standing near the entrance with Claire, who was holding Emma, greeting guests as they arrived. He saw Vanessa across the room, and their eyes met. She smiled, a smile that promised chaos. The confrontation. First, Michael tried to avoid Vanessa. He stayed close to Claire, hoping Vanessa would get the message and leave, but Vanessa had other plans. She made her way through the crowd, her red dress turning heads, until she was standing right in front of them. "Michael," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "aren't you going to introduce me to your wife?" Claire looked confused, glancing between Michael and this beautiful stranger. Emma fidgeted in her arms, sensing the tension. Michael's face had gone pale, his mind racing for an explanation, an excuse, anything. "I'm Vanessa," the other woman continued, extending her hand to Claire. "Michael and I work together. We've become very close." The emphasis on that last word made Claire's stomach drop. She looked at Michael, searching his face for denial, for reassurance, but what she saw there told her everything she needed to know. The guilt, the fear, the desperate plea in his eyes, it was all the confirmation she needed. "How close?" Claire asked quietly, her voice steady despite the trembling she felt inside. Vanessa laughed, a cruel sound that cut through the elegant music playing in the background. "Oh, honey, we've been seeing each other for 2 years. I thought you knew. I thought he would have told you by now." The room seemed to tilt. Claire clutched Emma tighter, her daughter's small body the only solid thing in a world that had suddenly gone sideways. Guests nearby had stopped their conversations, sensing drama unfolding. Whispers began to spread through the crowd like wildfire. The revelation Michael finally found his voice. "Claire, please, let me explain. This isn't what?" Claire interrupted, her voice rising. "Isn't what it looks like? Isn't a betrayal? Isn't you destroying our family on our daughter's first birthday?" Emma began to cry, frightened by her mother's tone. Claire rocked her gently, trying to soothe her daughter while her own world fell apart. She looked at Vanessa, really looked at her, and saw the satisfaction in the other woman's eyes. This was intentional, this was planned. Vanessa wanted to hurt her, wanted to take what was hers. "How could you?" Claire asked Michael, tears streaming down her face now. "How could you do this to us, to Emma?" Michael reached for her, but she stepped back, shaking her head. "Don't touch me," she said. "Don't you dare touch me." The party had come to a complete standstill. Everyone was watching now, their celebration forgotten in the face of this very public destruction of a marriage. Claire's mother pushed through the crowd, taking Emma from her daughter's arms so Claire could deal with this nightmare without worrying about her baby. Vanessa's ultimatum with Emma safely with her grandmother, Claire turned her full attention to Vanessa. "Why?" she asked simply. "Why would you do this here, now, like this?" Vanessa shrugged, unbothered by Claire's pain. "Because he would never have told you otherwise. Because I'm tired of being a secret. Because I deserve better than stolen moments and lies." "You knew he was married," Claire said, her voice hard now. "You knew he had a family. You're just as guilty as he is." "Maybe," Vanessa admitted. "But at least I'm not living a lie. At least I know what I want and I'm not afraid to fight for it." She turned to Michael, who stood frozen between the two women. "Choose," she demanded. "Right here, right now. Her or me. The boring suburban life or a real relationship with someone who actually excites you." Michael looked at Claire, at the woman he had vowed to love and cherish forever. He saw the devastation in her eyes, the betrayal, the death of trust that could never be rebuilt. Then he looked at Vanessa, at the woman who had made him feel young and desired again, but who had just proven how selfish and cruel she could be. For a moment everyone held their breath. The choice seemed obvious. Of course he would choose his wife, his family, his daughter, but Michael had never been good at making difficult decisions. The wrong choice. "I'm sorry, Claire," Michael said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "I never meant for it to happen this way. But I can't do this anymore. I can't pretend." The words hung in the air like poison. Claire felt as if she'd been physically struck. She had expected denial, expected him to beg for forgiveness, expected him to choose his family. She had never imagined he would actually choose his mistress, especially not in front of all their friends and family, especially not at their daughter's birthday party. "You're choosing her?" Claire asked, needing to hear him say it clearly. Michael nodded, unable to meet her eyes. "I think I love her." Vanessa's face lit up with triumph. She reached for Michael's hand, linking her fingers with his in a gesture of ownership. Michael let her, sealing his choice in front of everyone. Claire felt her knees buckle, but she forced herself to stay standing. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her collapse. She looked at Michael, really looked at him, and realized she didn't even recognize the man standing in front of her anymore. "Get out," she said quietly. "Claire," Michael began. "Get out," she screamed, her composure finally breaking. "Get out of this party. Get out of our home. Get out of our lives. You've made your choice, so live with it." Michael and Vanessa left quickly, her red dress a slash of color as they disappeared through the ballroom doors. The guests stood in shocked silence until someone, Claire's best friend Sarah, started the birthday song, trying desperately to salvage something from the wreckage of the day. The aftermath. The next few months were the darkest of Claire's life. She filed for divorce immediately, her lawyer painting a vivid picture of Michael's infidelity. The court awarded her primary custody of Emma, with Michael getting supervised visitation every other weekend. He was also ordered to pay substantial child support and alimony. Claire moved into a smaller apartment with Emma, unable to stay in the house she had shared with Michael. Everything reminded her of the life she thought they had, the future she thought they were building. She started therapy, trying to work through the betrayal and the very public humiliation she had endured. Meanwhile, Michael moved in with Vanessa, At first, everything seemed perfect. They were finally together. No more sneaking around, no more lies. Vanessa was attentive and loving, everything he thought he wanted. But slowly, reality began to set in. The cracks began to show. The first problem was money. Michael's salary, once more than enough to support his family comfortably, was now split between child support, alimony, and maintaining Vanessa's expensive lifestyle. She wanted designer clothes, fancy restaurants, weekend getaways. She had expensive tastes, and she expected Michael to provide for her the way he had provided for Claire. But Claire had been frugal, practical. She had managed their household budget carefully, never demanding more than they could afford. Vanessa was different. She saw Michael's success as her own, and she wanted to enjoy the fruits of his labor without any of the responsibilities. The second problem was Emma. When Michael had his visitation weekends, Vanessa made it clear she wasn't interested in playing stepmother. She would make plans for herself, leaving Michael to care for Emma alone in an apartment that wasn't child-proofed and didn't have any of the comforts his daughter was used to. Emma would cry for her mother, confused about why her daddy lived in a different place now, why that woman in the red dress was always there. Michael found himself canceling visitation more and more, making excuses about work or other commitments. The truth was, he couldn't handle the guilt. Every time he looked at Emma's face, he saw Claire's eyes staring back at him, reminding him of what he had destroyed. Vanessa's true colorist. Third problem, and the one that ultimately destroyed their relationship, was Vanessa herself. Without the thrill of the affair, without the excitement of sneaking around, their relationship lost its spark. Michael began to see Vanessa for who she really was, selfish, demanding, and cruel. She belittled him constantly, comparing him to other men, complaining that he wasn't romantic enough, wasn't exciting enough. She flirted with other men in front of him, always with a laugh and a just kidding, but Michael could see the truth behind her actions. She had pursued him because he was taken, because she enjoyed the conquest. Now that she had him, he was boring. 6 months after Emma's birthday party, Michael came home from work to find Vanessa packing her bags. "Where are you going?" he asked, confused. "I met someone," she said simply. "Someone with more money, more ambition, someone who can actually keep up with me." Michael stared at her in disbelief. "You're leaving me? After everything I gave up for you?" Vanessa laughed, that same cruel laugh from the birthday party. "You didn't give up anything I didn't offer you. You wanted to leave your boring life, your boring wife. I gave you an excuse. But now I'm bored too." She walked past him, her suitcase rolling behind her, and paused at the door. "Good luck, Michael. You're going to need it." The weight of regret alone in the apartment he could barely afford. Surrounded by Vanessa's abandoned belongings, Michael finally understood what he had done. He hadn't loved Vanessa. He had loved the idea of her, the escape she represented from his responsibilities and his adult life. He had thrown away a woman who truly loved him, who had built a life with him, who had given him a beautiful daughter, all for someone who had never really cared about him at all. He tried to reach out to Claire, calling and texting, begging for another chance, but Claire had moved on. She was healing, building a new life for herself and Emma. She had started dating again, tentatively, and had even met someone, a kind, stable man who treated her with respect and adored Emma. "You made your choice, Michael," Claire told him during one of his attempts to reconcile. "You made it very publicly, in front of our families and friends, on our daughter's first birthday. You chose her over us, and you have to live with that choice now." "I was wrong," Michael pleaded. "I was so wrong. Please, Claire, please give me another chance." But Claire had learned something important during her healing process. Some betrayals are too deep to forgive, and some choices can't be undone. Michael had shown her who he really was. Someone who would abandon his family, someone who would prioritize his own desires over the well-being of his wife and child. Even if she could forgive him, she could never trust him again. Emma's second birthday party was a small affair held in Claire's new apartment with just close family and friends. Emma was too young to remember the disaster of her first birthday, but Claire would never forget it. She looked at her daughter, healthy and happy, surrounded by people who truly loved her, and felt grateful for the life they had built from the ashes of her marriage. Michael wasn't invited to the party. He sent a gift, an expensive toy that Emma ignored in favor of the simple wooden blocks Claire's mother had given her. He called that evening, hoping to talk to his daughter, but Emma was asleep. "How was the party?" he asked Claire quietly. "It was perfect," she said honestly. "Peaceful, full of love." "I miss her," Michael said. "I miss both of you." "You should have thought of that before," Claire replied, not unkindly, just stating a fact. "You can't unmake the choices you made, Michael. You can only live with them." After she hung up, Michael sat in his empty apartment. He'd had to move to an even smaller place after Vanessa left, unable to afford the rent on his own, and wept. He thought about that moment at the birthday party, when he had stood between his wife and his mistress and made the worst decision of his life. He thought about how different things could have been if he had simply been honest with Claire from the beginning. Or better yet, if he had never started the affair at all. The years that followed time passed, as it always does. Emma grew older, starting preschool and making friends. She saw her father every other weekend, but their relationship remained strained. Michael had become a weekend dad, someone who provided presents and fun outings but wasn't there for the daily struggles, the scraped knees, the bedtime stories, the homework help. Claire eventually married her boyfriend Tom, and they had another child together, a son named Daniel. Emma gained a loving stepfather who attended her school plays and taught her to ride a bike. The life Claire had rebuilt was stable, happy, and full of genuine love. Michael, meanwhile, remained alone. He dated occasionally, but he couldn't maintain relationships. The guilt and regret consumed him, turning him bitter and withdrawn. His career stagnated because he couldn't focus. His friends from his marriage drifted away, having sided with Claire after witnessing his betrayal. He became isolated, living a half-life of might-have-beens and if-onlys. Vanessa occasionally appeared on his social media, always with a new man, always living glamorously. He had unfollowed her eventually, unable to stomach the reminder of how thoroughly she had used and discarded him. But sometimes, late at night, he would look at her profile and wonder how he had been so blind. Emma's understanding when Emma turned 10, she finally asked Claire about what had happened to her parents' marriage. Claire had always been honest with her daughter, age appropriately, but now Emma was old enough to understand the full story. They sat together on the couch, and Claire told her daughter the truth about the affair, about the birthday party, about her father's choice. Emma listened quietly, processing the information. "Do you hate him?" Emma asked finally. "No," Claire said truthfully. "I don't hate him, I pity him. He threw away something real for something fake, and he'll have to live with that regret for the rest of his life." "Does he regret it?" "Every day," Claire confirmed. "But some mistakes can't be fixed, sweetheart. Some choices have permanent consequences." Emma nodded, understanding more than she would have liked. "I'm glad you're happy now, Mom. You and Tom and Daniel, we're a real family." Claire hugged her daughter tightly, tears in her eyes. "We are, baby. We absolutely are." Epilogue: 20 years later, Emma's 21st birthday was celebrated at a beautiful restaurant downtown. She was in college now, studying to be a therapist, influenced by her own experience with family therapy throughout her childhood. She was dating someone who treated her with respect, having learned from her mother's experience what real love should look like. Michael was invited this time, but he came alone. He was older now, graying at the temples, lines of regret carved deep into his face. He watched as Emma laughed with her family, with Claire and Tom, with Daniel, with her grandparents and friends. He was part of the celebration, but separate from it, always standing slightly outside the circle of. "You're in a quiet moment." Emma pulled her father aside. "Dad," she said gently, "you know I love you, right?" "I know," Michael said, his voice rough with emotion. "But I also want you to know that I understand what happened. I understand the choice you made, and I understand why Mom couldn't take you back." Michael nodded, unable to speak. "I forgive you," Emma continued, But forgiveness doesn't mean I forget. It doesn't mean that everything is okay. It just means I'm not going to carry your mistakes around with me anymore. She hugged him briefly, then returned to her party, to the family that had loved and supported her throughout her life. Michael stayed for another hour, then quietly left, driving back to his small apartment with the weight of his past choices still heavy on his shoulders. As he lay in bed that night, Michael thought back to that birthday party 20 years ago, to the moment when he had stood between two women and chosen wrong. He thought about all the birthdays he had missed, all the memories he had sacrificed, all the love he had thrown away. Regret, he had learned, was a permanent companion. Some choices echo through time, shaping not just your own life, but the lives of everyone you touch. He had learned that lesson far too late, and now he would spend the rest of his days living with the consequences of one terrible decision made at his daughter's first birthday party. The day he chose a beautiful lie over an imperfect truth and lost everything that truly mattered. The chandeliers had sparkled that night, beautiful and bright, illuminating his betrayal for everyone to see. Now, all these years later, Michael still sometimes dreamed of that ballroom, of Claire's face when she understood what he had done, of Emma crying in her grandmother's arms. In his dreams, he always made the right choice. But when he woke up, the reality remained unchanged, a life spent in regret, watching from the outside as the family he destroyed thrived. Without him. End.